Before she became one of the most powerful names in music, she was just a tall, curly-haired kid sitting on the floor of her bedroom in Pennsylvania, writing songs about boys who did not know she existed. She was not famous. She was not cool. She was just very observant, very emotional, and very sure that music was going to be her way out. Hey friends, welcome back to another English shadowing practice. I'm Nathan with you. Just a quick reminder. Listening is great, but speaking is where the real progress happens. So as you follow along, repeat whatever feels comfortable. You don't have to repeat every single sentence. Catch what you can, pause when you need to, and try saying parts out loud in your own rhythm. Everything here is kept short and clear, so it's easier to follow. Don't stress about being perfect. Progress comes from repetition, not perfection. So let's start. Taylor Allison Swift was born on December 13th, 1989, in Reading, Pennsylvania, and she grew up in a small town called Wyomissing. Her father worked as a financial advisor, and her mother had a background in marketing, so she did not grow up in the entertainment world. She grew up around Christmas tree farms, school talent shows, and long car rides with country music playing in the background. As a child, she loved performing. She would put on small shows for her family and volunteer to sing at local events. At 9 years old, she started doing musical theater, but it was country music that really changed her direction. When she heard artists like Shania Twain and Faith Hill, she realized that songs could tell stories about real feelings in a simple, honest way. That idea stuck with her. She began writing her own songs in middle school, mostly about crushes and small-town drama, and she took it seriously from the start. At 11 years old, she convinced her parents to take her to Nashville so she could hand out demo CD to record labels on Music Row. She walked into those offices with a CD of karaoke covers and introduced herself like she already belonged there. Nothing happened. Most kids would have taken that as a clear sign to try something else, but she did the opposite. She went home and decided that if she wanted to stand out, she needed original songs. She started working with a local songwriting mentor and practiced constantly. She treated songwriting like homework. When she was 14, her family made a life-changing decision and moved to Hendersonville, Tennessee, just outside Nashville, so she could chase a music career more seriously. It was not a temporary experiment. They relocated their lives because they believed in her. Around that time, she became the youngest songwriter ever signed by a major publishing company in Nashville. She was still in high school, writing songs between classes, but adults in the industry were already noticing that she had a clear voice and strong instincts. Soon after, she signed her first record deal with Big Machine Records, a brand new label at the time. She was not an established artist, joining a safe system. She was building her career alongside a label that was also trying to prove itself. In 2006, at 16 years old, she released her self-titled debut album, Taylor Swift. The songs were deeply personal and written from the perspective of a teenage girl who paid attention to everything. Tracks like Tim McGraw and Teardrops on My Guitar connected with young listeners who felt like she was describing their exact lives. What made her different was not just the music, it was the way she treated her audience. She stayed after shows to meet fans, replied to messages online, and made people feel like they were part of something personal instead of just consuming a product. That early connection built loyalty that would follow her for decades. Her first album steadily climbed the country charts and stayed there for years, which is rare for a debut project. By the time she started working on her second album, she was no longer just a hopeful teenager. She was a rising star in country music with a fast-growing fan base. In 2008, she released Fearless. This was the album that turned her from a promising country singer into a national phenomenon. Love Story blended classic romance with modern teenage emotion, and You Belong With Me became an anthem for anyone who felt overlooked. The songs crossed over from country radio to pop radio without losing their identity. Fearless went on to win Album of the Year at the Grammy Awards when she was just 20 years old, making her the youngest artist at the time to receive that honor. Suddenly, she was not just a country artist anymore. She was a global pop culture figure, and she was only getting started. By 2009, Taylor Swift was no longer just a country star. She was one of the most recognizable young artists in the world. That level of fame sounds exciting, but it also means every moment can turn into history without warning. At the MTV Video Music Awards in 2009, she walked on stage to accept an award for Best Female Video. She was 19 years old, holding the microphone and thanking her fans. Then Kanye West walked onto the stage, interrupted her speech, and said that the award should have gone to someone else. The audience gasped. Taylor stood there frozen, not sure what to say. Within minutes, the clip was everywhere. News channels replayed it. Social media exploded. Overnight, she became part of a much bigger celebrity conversation that had nothing to do with her music. That moment made her more famous, but it also made her a symbol. Some people defended her, some people mocked her. Either way, her name stayed in headlines. In 2010, she released Speak Now. This album was important because she wrote every single song by herself. No co-writers, no shared credits. It was her way of proving that she was not just a teenage face with a good team behind her. She was a real songwriter with control over her voice. Speak Now showed growth. The songs were more detailed, more reflective, and more aware of consequences. She was still writing about love and heartbreak, but she was also writing about public criticism and personal regret. Her tours became larger, her stage production more ambitious, and her confidence more visible. Then came Red in 2012. Red felt like a turning point. It blended country, pop, and rock in a way that did not fit neatly into one genre. The emotions were more intense and less polished. Songs like We Are Never Ever Getting Back Together were playful and direct, while All Too Well showed a deeper, more detailed kind of storytelling that fans immediately connected with. During this period, her relationships became constant media stories. Every time she was photographed with someone, headlines speculated about which future song would be about him. The narrative that she only wrote about ex-boyfriends became a running joke online. Instead of avoiding it, she kept writing. By this time, she understood that attention could be turned into momentum. She also understood that image control mattered. She started thinking bigger than just albums. She thought about branding, presentation, and long-term strategy. In 2014, she made one of the boldest moves of her career. She officially left country music and released a fully pop album called 1989, named after her birth year. This was not a small shift. It was a complete reinvention. Shake It Off introduced a brighter, more playful version of her public personality. Blank Space directly mocked the media image of her as a dramatic serial dater. Instead of denying the headlines, she exaggerated them and turned them into satire. The risk paid off. 1989 became a massive global success. It won Album of the Year at the Grammy Awards, making her one of the few artists ever to win that award twice. She was no longer seen as a country crossover artist. She was now a full pop powerhouse. Her tours began breaking revenue records. Endorsement deals multiplied. She became known not only for music, but for smart business decisions. She paid attention to contracts. She negotiated carefully. She started to understand ownership in a deeper way. On the outside, everything looked perfect. But behind the scenes, new conflicts were quietly building that would soon change the direction of her entire career. By 2016, Taylor Swift was at the peak of her fame. But that peak did not feel stable. Another conflict with Kanye West and Kim Kardashian exploded online after a recorded phone call was released. Social media quickly turned against her, and the snake emoji filled her comment sections for months. For the first time in her career, the public mood shifted in a way she could not control. The same internet that once celebrated her now questioned her honesty. Instead of fighting every headline, she stepped back completely. She stopped doing interviews. She stopped posting regularly. She disappeared from public view. When she returned in 2017, she did not come back quietly. She released Reputation. The tone was darker. The production was heavier. The lyrics were sharper. Songs like "Look What You Made Me Do" felt like a direct response to everything that had happened. But she never explained the full story in interviews. She let the music speak instead. Reputation was not just an album. It was a reset. The Reputation Stadium Tour became one of the highest-grossing tours ever at that time. Stadiums sold out across multiple countries. The message was clear. Even if the online narrative had changed, her core audience had not left her. Those fans, known as Swifties, had grown into one of the most organized and loyal fan communities in modern music. They analyzed lyrics for hidden clues. They searched for patterns in numbers and outfits. They paid attention to details that casual listeners missed. Taylor encouraged this by planting subtle hints about future projects in music videos and social media posts. This interactive relationship made her career feel like an ongoing story rather than a series of separate albums. Then, a major business issue surfaced. In 2019, she publicly revealed that she did not own the master recordings of her first 6 albums. The rights to those recordings had been sold to another company. For her, this was not just a financial issue. It was about control over her life's work. Instead of accepting the situation, she made a bold decision. She would re-record her earlier albums so that she could own the new versions herself. In 2021, she began releasing these projects labeled Taylor's Version. Fearless Taylor's Version came first, followed by Red Taylor's Version. The re-recordings were not simple copies. They included updated vocals and previously unreleased songs that fans called "From the Vault" tracks. The strategy worked. The albums went to number 1. Fans actively supported the new versions instead of streaming the originals. She turned a contract conflict into a powerful lesson about ownership in the music industry. During the global pandemic in 2020, she surprised everyone again. Without heavy promotion or long teaser campaigns, she released Folklore. The sound was softer and more reflective. The production leaned toward indie and alternative styles. Instead of focusing only on her own public relationships, she wrote fictional stories and character-driven narratives. A few months later, she released Evermore, which continued that tone. Folklore won Album of the Year at the Grammy Awards. That victory made her the first woman ever to win Album of the Year 3 times as the main credited artist. At that point, she was no longer just a successful pop star. She was one of the most decorated artists of her generation. She had survived public backlash. She had reinvented her sound multiple times. She had challenged industry norms about ownership. And she was preparing for something even bigger. By 2022, Taylor Swift had already rebuilt her catalog, reshaped her public image, and proven that she could survive almost any industry conflict. Most artists, at that point, would slow down. She did the opposite. She announced the Eras Tour. Instead of promoting just one album, the tour covered her entire career. Each section of the show represented a different musical era, from her country beginnings to her indie-inspired projects. The concert runs for more than 3 hours, with dozens of songs performed each night. When tickets went on sale, demand was overwhelming. Websites crashed. Waiting lists grew into the millions. Every stadium sold out. Economists even reported that her tour boosted local economies in the cities she visited because of travel, hotels, and merchandise sales. It was no longer just a concert. It was a cultural event. In 2023, she released Midnights, an album built around late-night thoughts and private reflections. The production leaned into synth pop, while the lyrics returned to personal themes like ambition, insecurity, and self-awareness. The album broke multiple streaming records within days. That same year, she was named Time Magazine Person of the Year. This recognition was not only about music sales. It reflected her influence on culture, business, and the way artists think about ownership. Financially, she reached a level few musicians ever achieve. With album sales, streaming revenue, touring income, merchandise, and smart investments, she officially entered billionaire status. However, her wealth has always been closely tied to her work ethic. She writes or co-writes her songs. She is deeply involved in production decisions. She plans tours carefully. Nothing feels accidental. Her relationship with fans remains central to everything she does. She invites selected fans to private listening sessions before album releases. She sends gifts. She continues to hide subtle clues in videos and posts, keeping the experience interactive and personal. In her personal life, she has been more private in recent years compared to her early 20s. She has spoken openly about the pressure of public relationships and the way media narratives can distort reality. Over time, she has learned to set boundaries while still sharing parts of her story through music. What makes her career unusual is not just longevity. It is reinvention without losing identity. She has moved from country to pop to indie folk and back to polished pop again, while keeping her core strength the same. She writes about emotions in a direct, clear way that listeners understand immediately. From a teenage girl handing out demo CDs in Nashville to one of the most powerful figures in modern entertainment, her journey has followed a simple pattern. She adapts, she learns, she takes control. Today, Taylor Swift is not just a singer or songwriter. She's a case study in branding, resilience, and creative ownership. She built a career that feels personal to millions of people while still operating at a global business scale. And the story is still unfolding. All right? If you made it through this shadowing session today, that already says something about your discipline. This repetition and consistency combination might look boring on paper, but it is one of the most powerful ways to build fluent, natural English. Keep showing up like this, and your brain will slowly adapt. Trust the process. If this helped even a little, consider liking the video or subscribing. It lets me know these sessions are actually making a difference. We will do this again soon. Take care.